Chairman Crapo and Ranking Member Wyden, thank you for the opportunity to testify before this committee on such an important topic. I'm Scott Whitaker. I'm the President and CEO of AdvaMed. We're the Medtech Association, which represents the industry that invents, manufactures, and distributes technologies to every hospital, health clinic, and doctor's office in America. We're an American success story and the global superpower of medical innovation. Think about our industry this way: the diagnostic test, the X-ray, the MRI, the CAT scan, and the ultrasound, heart valves and heart pumps, cardiac monitors, stents and pacemakers, the artificial hip, artificial knee and shoulder, the insulin pump and the continuous glucose monitor, surgical kits that are used every day for 77,000 procedures in the United States, and now the imaging exam powered by AI, which according to a recent study improves breast cancer detection by more than 29%. These are the products and many more that the medtech industry manufactures. And I suspect everyone in this room has had direct experience with one or more of these life-saving technologies. As we think about trade policy and supply chains, it's essential that this industry is protected from tariffs for humanitarian reasons, as it historically has been. To be clear, we applaud the President's efforts to bring more manufacturing back to the United States and fix some of the existing trade imbalances. But the reality is up to 70% of medtech used in America is already made in America, supporting 3 million jobs across this country, and that's growing every day. The U.S. is the largest medtech market in the world, accounting for 40% of global sales. And it's unquestionably the global leader in innovation. If there's a breakthrough in medical technology, chances are it was developed right here. Tariff policy, if deployed in the wrong way, could put all of that at risk, and here's why. First, medtech products are mandatory, not optional. They can mean the difference between life and death, which is why they're highly regulated, as they should be. Shifting operations is a multi-year effort, bringing with it regulatory requirements not seen in other industries. While the supply chains for other industries are important to the economy and to consumers, most don't have the same impact that we have on human lives. Secondly, ours is a mostly fixed reimbursement environment. Medical technologies are purchased by hospitals through multi-year contracts, making cost spikes difficult to adjust to, if at all. Our customers are Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA, federal programs. Any revenues that might be generated by tariffs could be offset by higher prices. Increasing costs to federal programs seems to me to be counterproductive. Currently, medtech represents only 5% of healthcare spending in the United States and historically has been deflationary. For example, a pacemaker adjusted for inflation now costs 20% less today than it did 10 years ago. And that's fairly typical for our products. Finally, the medical supply chain for medtech is highly complex. Many products contain several hundred parts from multiple countries and multiple regions around the world. Let me give you an example. Recently, a U.S. company purchased a foreign company with the intent of moving its operations to the United States. Why? Because this company manufactures two critical neonatal products that respectively supply 50% and 70% of American NICUs with this product. The plan to move that operation will take 3 to 5 years to fully implement. In the meantime, tariffs, if wrongly implemented, will threaten that plan. And as a result, could put NICUs in a very difficult position. That's not a risk, in our opinion, worth taking. Let me conclude by saying this. We appreciate the President's 90-day pause. We're encouraged by his most recent announcements on China as well. But we believe that for the medtech industry, to continue delivering to patients requires maximum tariff flexibility. We're asking for medtech products to be treated with a reciprocal zero-for-zero model in each of the administration's country-by-country negotiations. Historically, this has been the place that medtech has landed. So, Mr. Chairman, we stand ready to work with you, with the President and this administration to move forward to support this industry and allow it to continue to be the growing and vibrant American presence that it has always been. With that, thank you for the time, and I look forward to your questions.
Mr. Whitaker, and this might be a harmonious moment of bipartisan interest in the med device industry so that we can explore together, Senator Wyden, how to optimize our trade enforcement tools for an industry that is really important to my state and to the health and well-being of so many Americans, but also highly regulated and life critical. So I guess, Mr. Whitaker, are there particular things that we should be thinking about as policymakers to take into account the life critical and highly regulated nature of your industry when designing or considering trade enforcement tools?
Right. So first of all, I would answer it this way. Broad tariff policy is not constructive relative to that. Targeted tariff policy, as many of our colleagues have said, could be constructive relative to certain component parts. But I would put it in three broad categories from a broad policy standpoint. Tax policy matters a lot relative to manufacturing in the United States. A low corporate tax rate, appropriate incentives, R&D incentives in the tax code matter a lot in order to relocate our products here and continue to build here. Secondly, regulatory policy matters. Regulations are important, but if they're not expedited and it's a slow process, it's very difficult for us. And third, reimbursement policy matters as well. Other countries are very careful about reimbursing products that are built in their country for their country at a rate that's better than ours.
I see.
We don't do that in our country, and we need to. And I'll give you one more thing. The breakthrough legislation that you've introduced for medical technologies would make a huge difference in U.S.-made manufacturing products coming to market more quickly. It incentivizes growth, it incentivizes jobs, and it's good for the healthcare system.
What more can we do when we talk about building in that resiliency for these inputs in a supply chain for something like medical devices?
Yeah, Senator, it's a great question, and you do have great companies in Tennessee. I would say 80% of all U.S. medical technology companies are small companies, small businesses who aren't profitable today. But they're the engine that drives innovation for many of the large companies as they're bringing new products and innovative products to market. I think there are tax policies, we can have a longer conversation about that are beneficial to small companies particularly. I think the tariffs, to come back to this point, for any small company that may have made strides in moving products back into the United States, but still have to access products from other parts of the country or other parts of the world, I should say. Right. A 10% increase, a 15, 20% increase hits their bottom line quickly, and it hits it very, very hard. And my concern is the small businesses get hit hardest first in the medical technology industry. So exempting medical technology products from the tariffs in the short term would be a huge benefit for small companies, mid-sized companies, and large companies as well. And can I add, we've never really experienced tariffs before in the medical technology industry. Across the board, they've been 0 to 1 to 2%. So any increase domestically or overseas is an increased cost to our companies. Countries have recognized for years the value of what we do, the humanitarian nature of the work we do, the impact on cost to the healthcare system, and as a result, we haven't experienced that. So we would hope going forward we wouldn't see that experience in the future as well.
Mr. Whitaker, the American med tech industry is a major driver of innovation, economic growth, and job creation. However, this is a highly regulated industry. It's not easy to quickly move manufacturing here, as you indicated in your testimony. Moreover, some of the manufacturing entails low-value products that don't generate significant returns. How can we help identify what parts of the supply chain are essential to nearshore and the other parts that may benefit from tariff relief through trade agreements?
Yeah, so great question. We source things from all over the country and all over the world as well. So from plastics to rubbers to tungsten, the kind of list goes on and on. So having open access to those markets without large tariffs assigned to those makes it easiest for us to import those back into this country and then finish those products and sell them to hospitals in the United States. So the tariff barrier, the current tariff barrier, is the biggest challenge we've faced in a long time relative to accessing all the component parts we need to finish these products and provide them to hospitals.
Mr. Whitaker, I want to start with you. I think you mentioned in your opening statement about medical devices being the backbone of our healthcare system. I think about 2/3 of it is manufactured here in the U.S., but we really saw an exposure during COVID in terms of PPEs and a disproportionately high reliance on China. Can you give me some thoughts on, the thing that's maddening? This reminds me of almost like storms. After we have a storm, we talk about resiliency and building back stronger, all those sorts of things. And as time goes on, we forget about it. I feel like we're at risk of forgetting the lesson we learned during the COVID crisis. So can you give me some idea of what we could do to eliminate the vulnerabilities and exposures going forward, or what Congress should do to play a role in that?
Yeah, first of all, I'd say I think we've made a lot of progress since COVID, at least in our industry, and I can speak only for our industry, to relocate a lot of facilities and a lot of products closer to the U.S. Not everything back in the U.S. because we can't fully get there, but we've relocated a lot of products and technologies, PPE, and even more specific technologies in Mexico.
Talk a little bit about, because I agree with you about the complete, lift and set back in the U.S. probably doesn't make sense for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Talk very briefly, if you could, about why bringing it all back doesn't necessarily make sense for the long term.
Yeah, it's complicated, but there's a reason why we have the USMCA agreement. So the goal is to try to relocate as much of it as we can within North America so we can then get those supplies into the U.S. You have critical manufacturing facilities that are already set up and operational and manufacturing certain types of technologies. Rather than build a new facility in the U.S., which will cost a lot of money and take 3 to 5 years to get up and operational to get FDA approval for, it's much easier and lower cost to build it very close to the border and then have the ability to ship that in. And that's why the system works as it does so well for us.
I agree.
Mr. Whitaker, Americans, as you know, are terrified that tariffs on medical supplies will increase their health care costs, including already sky-high prescription drug prices as well. One New Mexican recently wrote me that the pharmaceutical tariffs will harm and kill me slowly. I need thyroid meds every single day to stop damage to my heart and kidneys. My kidneys are failing already. Please fight for me. Despite a Section 232 investigation still being underway, the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Lutnick, has publicly stated that tariffs on pharmaceuticals are coming in the next month or two. President Trump recently said that due to his tariffs, American children don't need to have more dolls and they don't need to have more pencils. Now, my question to you is, are pharmaceuticals and medical devices different than dolls or pencils?
So they're obviously different. I don't represent the pharmaceutical industry, so I can't speak to that. I can speak to the medical technology industry, and the disruption that's been caused as a result of these tariffs is a challenge. And we don't have the same flexibility that many people do in the economy just to adjust and change our prices without impacting the healthcare system in a negative way. So clarity here and an exemption for medical technology products in the short term, I think, is critical to making sure there's patient access and making sure costs remain stable in the healthcare system.
I appreciate it. So from the perspective of having the medical equipment that is needed to treat a patient, can an American make do with a small percentage of the healthcare the doctor tells them they need or the equipment they need to keep them safe?
We do a nice job in this industry of providing American hospitals with American-made technology, but not all of it. So about 70% of our product made in America is supplied to American hospitals. So in the short term, we can continue to manage that. In the longer term, it will create a crisis.
I appreciate that.
On this question of supply chains and healthcare, one of the things that I think we learned during the pandemic and the aftermath of how to deal with this in the future is that it's pretty hard for you all to act like that with the snap of the fingers. You do an amazing job moving very quickly. But I think it would be helpful if you could give us some kind of inkling of some of the challenges when you can't snap your fingers and why it's so important we get this fixed now, which means also coming up with a tariff approach that's targeted and sensible and not like this mess we've got in our hands today.
It's a great question, Senator. The reason we can't act quickly is because our supply chains are very complicated. They're distributed all over the world. Resources that we need to access are distributed and manufactured all over the world. And as a result of that, it's impossible to build a technology that might have 250, 300 different component parts in one location at the snap of a finger. Even if we wanted to do that, and even if we tried to do that, the regulatory process that's required to set up and manufacture a single product in a single site takes a long time to go through, and for good reason. You want to make sure that you have good manufacturing practices. You want to make sure the product is safe. You want to make sure it continues to be effective. So it's virtually impossible for us to relocate everything without going through a meaningful regulatory process as well, which means we need a diverse supply chain, and we need to pull products from a lot of different parts of the world in order to execute the agreements we have to provide those products to hospitals.